Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about someone who's been in the news, always in the news it seems like, and like him or not, he takes center stage in so many ways, and he has been the catalyst for so much change in the world. So good or bad, he has been really the defining character that has changed so many things in our world. So I thought I might look at his chart for good or bad to see what's going on, just because so many people are constantly saying, look at Trump's chart. Well, I gave you analysis before, but people want me to give an update. But the thing is that he is not the president. Therefore, I do not look at his chart to see what's happening in the world. Now, if he was president, I would. So you have to understand that that's how it works with astrology, to be looking at the leader of the countries to see what's happening with the countries. So this is just a little information to see where he's headed and what in the heck's going on. I mean, every day he gets indicted for something else. And one thing all astrologers will agree on is that Trump has a remarkably powerful chart. And you've got to know, he has, come into power, whether it was through real estate, through all of his doings with New York City, becoming powerful there with business and real estate, and then almost feels like he accidentally became president. I don't know if you can say that or not, but it just kind of feels like, how did he get there? Everyone said there was no chance in the world, and all of a sudden he was president, to everyone's shock. So let's look at his chart and just see where he's headed for the next couple of years, and especially while we're moving into 2024. So I'm going to put up Donald Trump's chart, and I want to talk a little bit about why it is so powerful. I know I've showed you his chart before, but looking at his chart, he has Leo as his rising sign. And the degree of his rising is marked. Why? Because it's 6 degrees of Leo, and that is where the most potent, one of the most important fixed stars, is, and that's Regulus. It sits at 6 degrees of Leo. That's his ascendant rising sign. So what is Regulus? It's the heart of the lion. It is the leader. And let me just say this, Trump is never going to follow. He has to be center stage. He has to be the leader. So, and he is very, very strong in his opinions with Leo rising. Mars sits very close to the ascendant as well. So he is very strong and direct and, delivers the punches where he feels like it should be. So looking at that, he was born under a lunar eclipse. You can see the sun and the moon are in opposition, so that's a full moon, and they're tied up very tightly with Rahu and Ketu. Eclipses are powerful. They are a gauge of major shifts and changes in the world. And he was born right smack dab with the sun and moon, with the moon being with Ketu and the sun being with Rahu. Sun Rahu is extraordinarily powerful and very egotistical. And yes, we get this in his 10th house of leadership. The man became president. I don't care if you like him or not. That's the sign of Maga rising and a Sun Rahu in the 10th house. And the Sun Rahu, the sun is the ruling planet of the chart. The sun rules Leo, so his ruling planet sits in the 10th house of work and career, and it's magnified by Rahu, and additionally it is aspected by Jupiter. Jupiter casts a trine to the sun Rahu. And not to mention, using that outer planet Uranus in the 10th house deals with sudden, unexpected changes. And his Jupiter and Uranus are exactly trine one another. That is sudden, unexpected windfalls of luck. It truly is. Uranus is unexpected changes and surprises, unpredictable behavior, but Jupiter is in a perfect trine. They're both 24 degrees, Virgo, Taurus. This is just, and he has what we call the Kalasarpa Yoga, which is when all the planets are on one side of Rahu and Ketu. And even though you could have the planets conjuncting Rahu and Ketu, in my estimation, this has always worked as the Kalasarpa. What is Kalasarpa? It means the time serpent yoga, which means you have a certain destiny and you are trapped between the nodes. And you're trapped sometimes. And it's about a very materialistic extreme in this world. It's very extreme. As a matter of fact, Kalasarpa means your life will have major highs and major lows, to the extent that if you tell people about it, they'll think you're exaggerating or making it up, because it is that extreme. And what I do find is that for the most part, when people hit a low point with the Kalasarpa, and they do, because remember it deals with highs and lows, that they usually rebound into a much higher position than before. Seen this happen with so many Kalasarpas. Of course, he's getting up there in age. I don't know if there's another rebound, but traditionally that's how it works. I mean, if you consider he was in bankruptcy at one point, divorcing his wife, and look, who would have thought he would have rebounded and become president of the United States? It's pretty out of this world, talking about extremes. So we know who he is, and he's got Mercury in the 11th house of gains. It's in its own sign, and that tells me he's quite intelligent and quite a talker. But if you ask me, I wish that he didn't talk as much. That's probably what Mercury in Gemini means. He talks too much, but needs to keep his mouth shut sometimes. And, he would look a lot better in many people's minds and estimations, because, yeah, that's talking. But his Saturn-Venus sitting in the 12th house, that is definitely his downfall, because the 12th house can deal with loss. They're in Cancer, so there's a deep insecurity. There's problems in relationships. Yes, I mean, this is a difficult placement. And I think it's part of his downfall that's been going on. So when I pull up his dashas currently, till October 22nd, 2023, he's in Jupiter Mercury. And that's not a bad combination for him right now, simply because Mercury goes 10 placements from Jupiter, meaning he has sustained himself and still come out, pretty popular amongst his people during this time. But October 22nd, 2023, he goes into Jupiter K2 for some time. And K2 is usually a downfall or a loss or a search into something deeper or more meaningful. And usually people go into something more deeper and meaningful because of a loss. It's like the only place you have is to go within and to hope and pray. So Jupiter K2, this is not good. And I didn't like that he was going into that for, his own sake. And looking at where the transit of Rahu and Ketu are about to shift over into, that's a problem for him as well. Because the end of November, Rahu's going to go into the 8th house, and Ketu's going to go into his 2nd house. And K2 will start to approach his Jupiter, which is not good. And even when we look at from his natal moon. His Jupiter, which goes to the 11th house, that is quite good, but I don't like K2 going over it. So now I want to look at the transiting planets, how they're going to be affecting Trump for the next few years. And this will definitely give us information as to where he's headed and the 2024 elections as well. So I realized that half of the country is divided, half of the country's for Trump, and half of the country's against Trump. So there's so much at hand here as to where he's headed and where he's going. So looking at the transits of Rahu and Ketu, they are our destiny. And wherever they are transiting will be a focal point and absolutely the point of greatest change in our chart and in our life. So around November 28th of 2023, Rahu will move into Pisces and Ketu will move into Virgo. And they will be in these signs for a year and a half to follow. They stay in a sign for 18 months. So Rahu will be in his 8th house, which is the house of death and most of all disgrace and humiliation. So there's going to be a lot that comes out during this time that is extremely difficult for him. But what I think is much worse is the fact that Ketu being in Virgo is going to be crossing over his natal Jupiter at 24 degrees of Virgo. And this actually occurs January 25th, 2024. Now, even though that's the exact date, let me just tell you, around this time, it will be felt. As a matter of fact, I have found that the minute the nodes change signs, you start to feel it. So the end of November, December, and into January, we're looking at some grave situations for Trump. And here's another reason why this transiting Ketu on his Jupiter could be a big loss, because he's in the dasha of Jupiter Ketu. Whenever you look at where the transits are, those planets that are relative to your dasha lords are more important in their transiting effects. So this speaks volumes that this is huge. Now, this is actually occurring in his 3rd house, which deals with his reputation, communications. Actually, no, it's in his 2nd house. I take that back. It's his Jupiter sits in the 2nd house. So Ketu will be in his 2nd while Rahu's in his 8th. And that means, well, the 2nd house is a very dangerous house. I know we think of it for money and family, but it's a Marika, and it can deal with some very serious matters. It's like the killer. So this is very difficult. And here's the 3rd reason why I think this is important. It's very interesting to me that presidents always have planets that line up with the United States chart. Absolutely they do. And it's very interesting to me, I'll just put this out there, but the United States chart that I use, the moon sits at 7 degrees of Aries. I'm sorry, 7 degrees of Aquarius. I'm thinking it's Aquarius. So the moon sits at 7 Aquarius. And President Biden's Ketu sits at 7 degrees Aquarius. And Biden's moon sits at 7 degrees of Aries. That's why I was thinking Aries. So he's got those 7-degree markers that the United States has the moon at 7 Aquarius. But transiting Saturn, as I'm speaking, for the whole rest of 2023, will be around 7 degrees of Aquarius. So something's coming down, something big is happening. And it doesn't look well for President Biden either. because K2 is losses. And can you say the United States is going to go through a big loss in some area attributed to Biden because his K2's at 7 Aquarius, the United States moon is 7 Aquarius. Now let's go back to where I was with Trump. Presidents' charts align with the United States chart. I found it fascinating. Now I know a lot of you that aren't for Trump don't like when I say this, but it's a fact. In the USA chart, Mercury sits at 15 degrees. I mean, in Trump's chart, Mercury sits at 15 degrees. See that? Gemini. Well, the United States Jupiter sits at 15 degrees of Gemini. So his Mercury is sitting right on the USA Jupiter. Furthermore, the United States Saturn that sits in the 10th house sits at 24 degrees of Virgo. And this is where K2 is going to be. Around January 25th of 2024, transiting K2 in the heavens will be at 24 degrees of Virgo, which says great losses for the United States in terms of government, in terms of leaders. Now, this could definitely have something to do with President Biden. There's loss. But I find it so interesting that that's Trump's Jupiter. And I brought that out when I predicted that he would be president. I brought that out because his Jupiter sits on the USA Saturn in the 10th house. Jupiter is a benefic. So regardless what you think, something, you know what, I have always said, you know, Trump is who he is. Ego, all the things we know that he is, no denying that. But when you look at the United States chart, there's something that he's bringing out that's clearing the air. And I believe that his coming into power, whether he even meant to or not, is a catalyst for the change that we needed to clear everything out. Whether you like any of these people at all, you know, none of these people are of a higher vibration, let's face it. All leaders around the world have to be these egocentric extremes to get into power. They're power hungry. So let's just agree that all these leaders that are in power right now are power hungry. But I think that Trump was a huge catalyst for change. And it's represented by looking at his chart in the USA chart. But K2 is going to be crossing over the USA Saturn in the 10th house of leadership. So there's something very dark happening between the end of November till the end of January, because that's when K2 will be in the 10th house of the USA chart. And by January 25th, it will be 24 degrees of Virgo on the USA Saturn and on Trump's Jupiter, 24 degrees of Virgo. Did I say Saturn? I meant to say, look at the chart. The USA has Saturn at 24 degrees of Virgo. Trump has Jupiter at 24 degrees of Virgo. Transiting K2 on January 25th will be 24 degrees of Virgo. So, loss for the United States, and something very difficult happens for Trump. Now, coming around to the time when Trump is going to change dashas, very, very weird that he's going to leave this difficult dasha of Jupiter K2 September 27th of 2024, he's going to go into Jupiter-Venus. And that's going to be around the time of the elections. Venus is his downfall. It's in the 12th house of losses. And when I was looking at Jupiter and going into Venus, initially I thought that was a terrible, terrible cycle for him to be in during the 2024 elections, if he even makes it there. And when I say make it, there's like treachery in his chart till then. Rahu is in the 8th house of disgrace, humiliation, and death. So we're looking at, you know, I kind of feel like they couldn't, if they can't get him out by all of these claims and trying to put him in jail, ultimately they'll do the last and final thing. And what would that be? You know, knock him out. Really knock him out. So I don't know, but I'm looking at all these where Rahu, Ketu are. So, but when he changes into Jupiter, Venus, Venus being in the 12th house, I thought, well, that's imprisonment. But when I pulled up where the transiting planets are going by August 27th of 2024, remember Jupiter's going to go into Taurus, where it's going to stay for a year starting May 1st. That means it's going to be in his 10th house, which is extraordinarily powerful. Look at his 10th house. Jupiter is going to be crossing over his Uranus, his Rahu, his Sun, plus casting a trine to his natal Jupiter. And he's in Jupiter's Mahadasha. So why do I think Venus is not so bad? Well, first of all, let me consider something else that is astounding before I go there. Uranus is going to be going into Taurus, June 1st, 2024. When it does, this means radical shifts and changes are occurring for him while it's in his first house. 10th house. So Uranus is going to be in the 10th. Jupiter is going to be in the 10th. And transiting Jupiter on August 27th, 2024, will start to trine his natal Jupiter. Jupiter in the 10th aspecting his natal Jupiter. And by November 20th, so in between August 27th and November 20th, Jupiter is pretty much stationing around 24 degrees of Taurus, aspecting his natal Jupiter, which sits on the United States Saturn. Transiting Jupiter will be aspecting the Saturn in the 10th house of the United States chart. And then Jupiter is going to be crossing over his Rahu Sun in 2025 in his 10th house of his career. This is elevating him. But here's the clincher that I think calls it. Now, transiting Venus on November 5th will be at 28 degrees of Scorpio, exactly on his natal moon and exactly within a degree aspecting his natal sun. So Venus will be activating that full moon in his chart on his moon, aspecting both the lights in his chart, the sun and the moon at the same time. Now, why is that remarkable? Because he's in Jupiter, Venus. And Venus is aspecting the sun and the moon, while Jupiter is aspecting his natal Jupiter. from the 10th house. So Jupiter's in the 10th, Venus is aspecting the 10th, and Venus is aspecting the sign that it rules, Taurus. And whenever a planet aspects a house that it rules, it empowers that house for whatever it's good for. The 10th house is the house of leadership. So things change on that last day. I think that last day, election day, will be a surprise to everyone if Trump is still around. Yeah, I'm shocked as much as you are with all the things that are happening, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And then there's a turnaround on election day. This is crazy stuff. And Uranus is the planet of unexpected sudden changes. Jupiter's going to be conjunct his Uranus in the 10th house, aspecting his Jupiter. This is the craziest situation I've ever seen. I don't know how or why it's possible, but I think he could be president again. We'll see. This is what I see in the stars. So with that, I think I'll close. Remember, if you'd like to learn more about me, if you want to study with me, go to my websites, go to galacticcenter.org, sign up for my free newsletter, get all of my predictions delivered to your email address. Plus, don't forget my magazine. It's amazing. Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. We have some of the best articles with amazing astrologers around the world. And don't forget to sign up for my Shooting Stars class. This is where we all come together to raise our awareness and our consciousness. These are powerful things going that the Galactic Center have going. Plus, don't forget, if this has inspired you to learn Vedic astrology, I have a stellar school. Become one of my students. Become a Vedic astrologer. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com. You can sign up anytime. It's all online, self-paced, and I will be your teacher. So with that, I think I'll close. Thank you for watching.